Játék szűpelőtérjén is ma ides kizsnénesli Billigana Bushashin, Kinlachini Dashache, Billigana Nationale. Welcome back to Resball, where this time we're going to be talking about South Carolina's big man, question mark, Collin Murray-Boyles. I mean, you're going to see this three-player crew in this little block that I put together. Heavily defensive oriented, also like basketball weirdos in terms of NBA projection. Clearly have athleticism and clearly are really good defenders, but what's offense like? It's a question. I mean, it's been a question for Collin Murray-Boyles since last season. Went back to South Carolina. I think he did improve somewhat in his game. Unfortunately, the team South Carolina didn't improve. Honestly, this is somebody to me that I have a hard time like arguing for. And also have a hard time seeing like the range, but there are certain places along the way, as we'll get into, of like, you know what, I think he's a perfect fit because of his high level defense. So let's get in Collin Murray-Boyles right about now. Collin Murray-Boyles is from Columbia, South Carolina. Went to the University of South Carolina, so local kids stayed home. A little bit of a weird journey. He went to AC Flora High School in South Carolina, first 3 seasons. His junior season at AC Flora High School, scored 18.3 points per game, pulled in 11.4 rebounds, 5.3 blocks per game. My goodness, 2.5 assists, and then 2.3 steals per game. I mean, that's the thing with Collin Murray-Boyles, is he just stuffs the stat sheet. Still in college, still same type of thing. As a senior in high school, went over to Wasatch Academy in Mount Pleasant, Utah. Shifting from South Carolina to Mount Pleasant, Utah. I would love to hear from the young man about, difference in culture shock and temperature and climate, all that stuff. As a senior at Wasatch Academy in Mount Pleasant, Utah, scored 15 points per game, pulled in 8.8 rebounds, 2.1 assists per game, 1.8 blocks per game, and 1 steal per game. I mean, that's pretty much the stat line that you're going to see from him rest of the time there. Over a block and steal, over 2 assists, and good rebounder, and still gets points despite like not having a jumper and a lot of these other things. One other thing to consider is that Collin Murray-Boyles contracted mono prior to his freshman season at South Carolina, so that factored into why he kind of caught on a little bit late in there, and maybe somewhat of like NBA teams telling him, hey, you should go back. We want to see what you look like for a full season healthy. Because mono is one of those things that really saps you of your strength, and it's hard to recover from. Even when you like are better, quote unquote, you can't really do anything when you have mono. You just got to rest. Anybody out there that's had it, this just takes all your energy for a long time, and then you don't feel like yourself. You don't really get back your energy levels for months, maybe even a little bit longer. So we'll look at the freshman and the sophomore seasons as we always do when there's returning players to see what the difference is. So let's dive into the stat profile right now. Collin Murray-Boyles this past season at South Carolina, 16.8 points per game, pulled in 8.3 rebounds, 2.4 assists, 1.5 steal per game, and 1.3 block per game, then 2.4 turnovers per game. Like I said, pretty much the stat line you're going to see from now, like over 15 points, over 8 rebounds, over 2 assists, over a block and a steal. Fantastic production from anybody, any position. And particularly from a big man where you're like, oh, can he score? Oh, he can. He's the leading scorer for South Carolina. Can he rebound? Yes, he's a high-level rebounder. Oh, look, he's got passing chops. You turn on the film, that's probably the most standout thing to me is like, wow, this guy has court vision to pass guys open and hit some dimes that you just don't see out of a power forward or center that often. And then protects the rim, a good steal, like is a very good switch defender. This is somebody, at least if defense was the only thing that mattered, Collin Murray-Boyles is a top 5 pick just because A, he can protect the rim, and B, he can switch. He's a good athlete. He's fluid. He's not necessarily explosive, but he knows how to utilize his smarts and his physical gifts to both wall off guys on the perimeter and at the rim. Shooting switch for Collin Murray-Boyles, 62.2% for 2-point range, 26.5% from 3-point range, and then 70.7% from the free throw line. Let's dive into these advanced stats. All of this translates to a 63% true shooting percentage. Very, very, very high. Anything over 60% is like, oh, wow, you're in elite territory. Anything over 62% is like, there's just not that many guys that know how to score that efficiently. And again, Collin Murray-Boyles was the man, the leading scorer, the number one thing in the scouting report on South Carolina on both offense and defense. So to maintain 63% true shooting, that's ridiculous. Very, very good. Rebound rate, 16.3% total, 23.8% defensive rebounding, 8.8 offensive rebounding. The offensive rebounding, I'm not going to lie, to me was a little bit of a disappointment this year, but I chalk it up to the role. Like last year, he wasn't necessarily the man. But like Michi Johnson, a couple of other guards and perimeter players that he was catching their misses and schemed into offensive rebound more. And it's one of the things a lot of people liked about Collin Murray-Boyles as his freshman year was the way he crashed the offensive glass. This year, that was definitely de-emphasized. They're like, no, 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 dude, you got to score. And then as the year went on, the team wasn't as successful. Like, okay, buddy, you got to get back on defense. I think in the NBA, like the offensive rebounding will come back. That kind of instinct and those kind of things, like riding a bike, you just don't forget those things. And I definitely buy into Collin Murray-Boyles on both sides of the glass. I think he's very, very good. And we'll get into his size and stuff. I think that also should factor into it. It's like for his size, he's an elite level rebounder. 21% assist percentage to just 15.4% turnover rate. I mean, approaching point guard territory. And for a big man who was the guy here at this South Carolina team, people already like his passing as a freshman, but I do think it improved this year as a sophomore to show like, okay, when I'm given major usage, when I'm the focal point of the team, like this is what I can do and I can create definitely more. How that's going to translate in the NBA is probably more like on short roll stuff and then in DHO situations, which I think that should be number one thing. Even if you don't buy into the rest of the offense with Collin Murray-Boyles, at least you're like, okay, he can screen, he can do a bunch of DHO stuff to get guys open, and we can just have him do pick and roll stuff and do things on the short roll again to get guys open in that regard. The only other thing is turnover rate's a little high. I know I said 15.4%, not bad, but it's still over 12% as a freshman, 15.4. If you look at the numbers and like the assist to turnover ratio, just in the totals, as a freshman, it was 49 assists to 34 turnovers. Is like, yeah. And then as a sophomore, 77 assists to 78 turnovers. That's a little bit more concerning. But I would push more towards on the positive side just because on film, you can see him have vision and make passes that like 90% of other big men can't make. And being the number one guy, go back to our last episode with Cam Jones, it's like this again is an overtaxed role player. If he's your number one option, then you're asking him to create the points, create the assists while also being your number one defender. Like that's just a lot to ask of this dude. So I not necessarily hand wave the turnovers, but it's like this shows, yeah, don't overtax this guy because if you want to utilize that passing thing, then this is probably somebody at the very ceiling is like third to fifth starter there. But yeah, again, I don't want to discount the passing, but I also want to highlight like this isn't Bam Adebayo or somebody at that level. This isn't like I don't think it's Draymond Green. I know other people are going to go out there and argue for that, but I just don't think it's at that level. I do think it's still at like a mismatch level. Think of somebody like a Jalen Duren. If you didn't watch me Piston games, go turn on some Piston games. Jalen Duren drives you mad on defense, so he's not like Collin Murray-Boyles in that regard. But Jalen Duren, very good passer for a big, and is in like the top 10 probably in terms of like passing bigs in the NBA right now, just because of the basic things he can do on short roll, in DHO stuff every now and then passing out of the post like he has good vision. That is a net overall positive, and Jalen Duren's like the fifth starter pretty much out there, not getting the most minutes and not being relied upon to be the man on offense, just understanding we have this passing and this is how we're going to work it into the overall offense to benefit the guys in front of him. Collin Murray-Boyles, 6'6.5" is what he measured in without shoes at the combine. So this is 6'7", 6'8" guys, depending on what pair of shoes he's wearing. 239.2 pounds and then 7'3/4" wingspan. Like I said before, somebody who does have IQ on defense, but then 7'3/4" wingspan. Yes, he's short. That's something that's going to be factored into it. Even at 6'8", we generously read Collin Murray-Boyles at 6'8". You're like, okay, that's still very much undersized, even at power forward, but 7'3/4" wingspan, fantastic. We can work with that. And then when you see his fluidity, his ability to switch, his ability to wall people off on the perimeter as well, It's like, okay, now we're really cooking with some gas to where this is a guy that is fluid enough to hang with small forwards, some small forwards, absolutely hang with power forward, and then be able to play small ball center with the rebounding, with the block numbers, and also let's go to the shot chart, shooting in the paint. As I said in the intro to this is the defensive weirdo block, as I like to call it. Also, the oh boy, he's going to have a hard time arguing for these guys in the NBA. I mean, if you're watching this on YouTube, just look at these shot charts. Not so great. A lot of blue and a lot of these. We're grouping Collin Murray-Boyles, Arutiro from Arkansas, and then Obina and no Chili Killen from Marshall. Finally getting into like the draft sicko and super sleeper type of territory. So definitely stay tuned for both Arutiro, who's not necessarily a super sleeper, but Obina. And Chili Killen is definitely absolutely a super sleeper out of Marshall. So stay tuned for that. Collin Murray-Boyles. He shoots well at the rim. 145 of 194 shots, 74.7%. Elite, elite, elite. Has touch, not a dunker. Has a lot of different post moves, whether it's backing you down from high post, mid post, whether it's up and under, whether it's spin moves, whether it's hook, baby hook. I mean, just being there directly at the rim, pick and roll, anything that gets him to the rim, he's going to finish it because he has elite level touch, I think. Outside of that, I mean, I can only speak for myself. I know other people are going to argue for jumpers. I know people are going to argue for like runner floater. I know other people are going to argue for corner threes. I at least like to have some glimmer of hope in the data and the film and the shot charts that give me that. I don't have that with Collin Murray-Boyles. I'm sorry. If he's not taking a shot at the rim, I just don't really know what he's going to do in the NBA outside of that. 33 of 84 shots in the paint, 39.3%. That's not good, especially for a big. That's probably that. Honestly, if those two numbers, the paint and the rim numbers, were good, then I'd be like, just pick and roll this guy. Maybe he could be like, I don't know, Jalen Williams. That's Jay Will, the big man in Oklahoma City, but he shoots still, so it like doesn't really kind of end up being the comp. But it's at least something, and you can say, okay, at least inside the paint in these two spots, we get him there and he'll be good. I don't know. A part of me wants to say chalk it up again to being overtaxed this year, being the man on a really bad 12-20 South Carolina team. They only won 2 games in the SEC play. They were like 2-16, I believe. They were dead last in the SEC, so really brutal this year. Collin Murray-Boyles didn't have anybody taken off him. But still, if you can finish that well in the paint, I think you should at least have something to go to and a little bit more of a bag in the paint as well as at the rim. So definitely has to work on something like a runner floater, maybe a little bit more of like a hook shot or a turnaround or something there in the paint to at least have 2 areas. And if you are just going to stay at the big man spot, which I'm going to argue for, undersized center, power forward guy that can play next to like a stretch big, then please, you have to figure out what to do in the paint. And maybe that is just like having more NBA spacers around you to where you're not facing double and triple teams in there. And the main thing with Collin Murray-Boyles' offense is he's going to have to change how he plays because pretty much like, I don't know, 60 to 70% of Collin Murray-Boyles' offense came with his back to the basket. That ain't going to happen in the NBA. Number one, nobody's drafting him to give him like 15% usage either, where he's just backing dudes down on the post. Maybe that happens in a second unit. Like, sure, cool. Probably, again, like I said, with the Kobe Sanders episode, you can find mismatches in there too. And if you do end up playing Collin Murray-Boyles, say like the 3 in some funky lineups, then yeah, absolutely utilize that as a mismatch thing in the second unit. But no way, especially if you're talking about Collin Murray-Boyles as a top 10 pick, which a lot of people are, then you definitely have to do more NBA level things. And I mean, just think about the number of guys, even now, even at the top, tippy top of the NBA, how many of those guys are given post touches? It's like Joel Embiid and like Nikola Jokic, right? Like the list might end there, maybe Giannis at times. So it's just like, nah, man, 11 of 26 in the mid range, just not a lot of mid range jumpers. If you want to argue he's going to get an elbow jumper or baseline like Udonis Haslam type of jumper, again, cool. I understand he has touch. The free throw number was 70.7%. And that doesn't really tell me a whole lot. I'm of the mindset unless you're consistently like 80% above free throw shooter, like I just don't want to buy into saying like, look, he improved from 66%, 70%. That shows that he can improve his jumper. And it's like, yeah, it's an improvement, but it's not clear enough and it doesn't show enough of like consistent mechanics for my liking. And then from three, 9 of 31 from above the break threes, which is 29%, and then 0 of 3 from the corners. If you want to argue for him as like a 3-point shooter, that he'll get better corners. I mean, he pretty much just has to sleep on the bench, wake up, go to those corners, and start shooting those shots. If you're gonna argue that like he could develop a jumper, the corner three has to come first. It's the easiest shot in basketball. He's a big man. He's probably going to be more at power forward, less at center. Those guys typically are corner 3-point shooters, right? And if you're majorly on defense, I mean, you want to get him on the PJ Tucker plan now. Like, just scam out on the corners, man. We'll get you there first. Try and work on your 3-point shot and let it come around slowly. I say all this of the like dissing all over his offense to say I still don't think you definitely need Collin Murray-Boyles to be a 3-point shooter. I was worried Collin Murray-Boyles was going to end up being like 6'4.5" in shoes, so he ends up being like 6'6" and like 239, even with the 7'1/4" wingspan. It's like, oof, not a lot of guys with that physical profile in this game that doesn't have red really anywhere outside of the paint. But at 6'8", about 240, 7'3" wingspan, and all the passing chops, all the fantastic defense. Yeah, again, these aren't the comps. I'm throwing out a lot of names out here because even though it's not a 1-to-1, there are many guys in the NBA right now who have these kinds of profile where it's like they don't have a jumper. I don't know if they'll ever have a jumper. Look, they really stuffed the stat sheet. Oh, they're a fantastic defender. They get a lot of rebounds. You can trust them on the glass. You can trust them to do things in the second unit with the ball in their hands. Like the Thompson twins come to mind, number one. I'm, again, Piston fan here. Asar, I hate to say this. I kind of giving up hope on Sar's jumper just because he really didn't take it this year and it didn't become a thing in the offense at all. And nobody was mad that he turned down threes, either from the coaches, his teammates, or the fan base, because he's such a great defender. And he does a lot of other really good things on offense where he doesn't necessarily need the jumper right now, as long as you have Cade Cunningham being your primary, a Malik Beasley knocking down over 300 threes, Tobias Harris being even just below average shooter. Like, you have these other things in the lineup that I don't want to say cover up for it, but like supplement where he is, and he supplements where they are with the athleticism and the defense. I wish Collin Murray-Boyles were more of an explosive athlete, especially if he were a lob threat. Like, that would probably vault him up my board a lot more, because then it is just like, yeah, this guy's a lob threat. You can feed him those. You can have him do short roll stuff and all that, but doesn't space the floor either from a horizontal standpoint with 3-point shot or vertically. So it is a little bit of a harder sell there. Jeremy Sohan's another one that I've thrown out there, and I almost made that the comp, because same thing, like that fool, I don't know if he'll ever have a jumper, but he is so good everywhere else. He's a really good defender around the same size, 6'8", 230 is what I think Sohan is listed at. A very good passer. You can give him the ball in his hands. They do that funky lineup where Sohan was the point guard, even though mostly he is that power forward. Haven't really played him at small ball center just with the personnel and stuff they've had there where they didn't need to do that stuff. But again, Coach Pop, shout out Coach Pop. Hope you would health as well, and then you transition well in the next phase in your career, being the czar and Caesar of San Antonio. But back to Sohan, same thing. Like, you don't want to get rid of that guy because you understand, hey, if I get the teammates around him, maybe come playoff time is where the lack of a 3-point shot might come back to bite you. But you live with it because of the versatility and because of all the fantastic defense that he provides. So I do think Colin Murray-Boyles, even though I have like major reservations about what exactly is he on offense, I buy into the defense where all the guys I just named. I think that's the main calling card for Colin Murray-Boyles. And I said it with Jam back in January of like, oh, I think Oklahoma City had 9 back then. I think number 9. I'm like, wherever they are, like I would just take Colin Murray-Boyles. He fits next to Chet. He got that stretch big. Everybody else in that starting lineup, even in the top like I don't know, 7 or 8 guys. Like they all shoot threes. They all take pressure off him. You got Shea being the man. What they really need is another guy that's around 6'8" that can switch defend, that can occasionally protect the rim and be more versatile in their front court because that is what they're missing. They have Hartenstein, they have Chet, they have Jalen Williams, but Jalen J. Will is about to become a restricted free agent because if they let his contract and next offseason he becomes an unrestricted free agent. And then they're pretty much stuck with just Chet and Hartenstein at as their only big man. And then Hartenstein's deal is up. I think next year is only 3 years and the last year is optional. So we'll see how that pans out. It's another one where it's just like, sure, I don't like his offense. Sure, I don't think he'll ever shoot. Sure, he's quote unquote undersized. But guess what? That Oklahoma City team, that's all they need in that spot, a power forward or whatever big man spot you want to say, next to Chet, next to the Hartenstein, somebody you throw in as the third big. That just messes things up. And hey, he has that other mismatch potential, all that other stuff that like can help out in the post and kick it out to Casey Wallace, kick it out to an Aaron Wiggins. So you got enough guys there to where it's like this guy just fits in seamlessly and gives us the exact role that we wanted. We don't care that he can't shoot threes and do anything other than outside the paint. Because hey, that's not what we want anyway out of this guy. We want his defense. We want him to be another screener. We want him to do some DHO stuff, and then we're just loaded as always, as they are in Oklahoma City. My comp, though, oh boy, I didn't do a comp blend, but I did come up with 2 because I understand the one to one that I want to say. I understand a lot of people are going to hate, and that's Chuck Hayes. Chuck Hayes, if you don't know who Chuck Hayes was, he was another undersized big man that caught on in Houston. Chuck Hayes was undrafted, and I don't normally like to do this too, of where I know a guy's going to get drafted in the first round, and then I compare him to like an undrafted guy who had to claw and fight his way up the ladder because those situations obviously don't match up very well. And normally the undrafted guy, like they get that label to where unless you become whoever the greatest undrafted free agent is, and I can't think of any off the top of my head. Unless you become a superstar, you're just never going to get priority over everybody else. So, but Chuck Hayes, I did think Chuck Hayes, because Chuck Hayes was a fantastic defensive player for Houston, really good margin win for them. He played in Houston for 6 seasons, Chuck Hayes. He even had to fill in for Yao Ming in one of those seasons where they were decimated with injuries, and he played the full 82 games. And then he played another season where he played something like 76, 79 games, and it was great. Go look up any Chuck Hayes on Houston film. I mean, really good backup guy. And who knew this 6'6", like 240-ish guy could start for a full season for a Houston Rocket team that had aspirations of winning a title. So Chuck Hayes is a really good player, played in the NBA 11 years as well, too. And I think he had all these same attributes that a Collin Murray-Boyles did. Great rebounder for being undersized. Can defend multiple positions, really good. But I mean, it's different back then because if you're playing center, you had to just be camped out in the paint, block shots, which is Chuck Hayes could do, and could even pass it some. I think Collin Murray-Boyles is the better passer, but for that era too, of like where you didn't see too many big men pass it and have more than like half an assist, 1 assist, like Chuck Hayes could do it. But why I came up with that one in the first place was like once Chuck Hayes left Houston, like he went to Sacramento where all potential goes to die. Sorry, Kings fans. Like, just didn't work out. He still played in the NBA another 5 seasons after that, but then was in Toronto, ended up with Houston for like 2 more games, and then that was the end of his NBA career. Chuck Hayes, like, it takes the right situation to maximize this kind of a guy. You saw him in Houston work his way up, end up being really good to the level of where they could start him for a full season, was the primary backup after Yao Ming got healthy and just did great on defense of filling in all the junk roles where you got to do all the dirty work on the glass and on defense. Yeah, again, what I just laid out with Oklahoma City, it's why I kind of did that progression there is like, you can see that. You can see in Oklahoma City, like, oh man, fantastic defender. He has everything we need here. But again, this is like the right situation. Sorry, Jam, wherever you are. I hate picking on the Wizards, but it's clear like the Wizards just kind of have like a collection of dudes. Charlotte's probably another one where like if you could go draft a Collin Murray-Boyles in either spot, it's just kind of like oof. You probably ask him to do more than what he should be, and he doesn't really have the team around him, and it's not the right situation for two reasons. Number one being like the team around him and what you're going to ask him to do. And the other thing is just like this isn't the right development system. Those both those places, they just don't have a track record of developing their guys every single year. So I do think that's why the Chuck Hayes came in for me. Is like, okay, I could see this guy playing in the NBA 11 years. I can see him catching on in the right situation, being really good. But once he leaves that situation, it might be a little bit harder, even though he still can prove like, hey, I'm still the backup. I'm still really good on defense and things. It's just not maximized because how the team's constructed around him or how the development and how they handle him doesn't work out quite well. The other guy, again, Sohan was one of the ones I kicked around. So I try and think of a modern one too. There's one tier where I ditched the modern one just because I think a lot of those guys are the old school type point guards, which we'll get into maybe in like 6 episodes or so in the future. The one modern guy that I settled on was Kevon Looney. I think Kevon Looney's undersized, quote unquote, but in terms of like bulk, he's Kevon Looney's listed at 6'9", 210. He came in the NBA like people thought he'd be a power forward, maybe even small forward. Like I remember his shooting potential at UCLA was a big point of contention. But then Kevon Looney came in and just ate glass, ended up being a fantastic switch defender and a really good rebounder, despite not being like the bulk that you want. And he has been a key role player for those Golden State teams every time they've won a title every year. It's why he's been there his whole career and why you can tell he doesn't want to leave because he understands he found the right situation with the right teammates and the right front office that they can always negotiate the deal that works. He's always going to play the role and be maximized to his utmost. He can play with a Draymond Green as the starting lineup. We need D. He can be the primary backup in the second unit. He can pass. He's a really good switch defender. I think Collin Murray-Boyles is probably the better shot blocker, but think of somebody like that too, to where they're not necessarily a superstar. They're not necessarily generating offense, but every time you turn on the tape, every time you talk to somebody in that locker room, every time you talk to the coaching staff, they're like, man, he is so integral to our defense. He is so integral to our team because he can pass, he can defend, and he is happy with doing all of the different dirty work and switching and all this other stuff. I do think at the very minimum, Collin Murray-Boyles can be like that. Kevon Looney. Yeah, I know a lot of other people want to argue for the 3-point shot and the jumper and stuff. I just can't get behind it. What I do see is a fantastic defender who's going to give you block and steal when you give him like 20 minutes or more per game. Somebody who switches, understands IQ, has a plus size wingspan for his position. He can play the small ball five in the backup unit. He can play power forward alongside a stretch big. Like there's still a lot of versatility as a defender. And then on offense, the passing, the passing, the passing. Yes, you've got a screener here now that's not just going to sit there and then run away and not know what to do. You don't have a screener that you can't give the ball to and then him manipulate it and know how to get his other teammates open or screen and then pass it to him and kick it out on short roll and stuff. Like all of these things scream to me it's a fantastic big man piece that you don't have to rely upon for offense, but will definitely contribute to winning in terms of screening and getting guys set up with his passing, and then on defense, being able to do a lot of different dirty work for a lot of different positions. I personally think Collin Murray-Boyles can defend from small forward all the way until center, just because I think of the fluidity and not the most explosive guy vertically, but you just don't see him get shook very often. And he is also very, very intelligent on defense. The passing, I think the passing a lot comes from understanding defensive positioning and studying film and knowing on both sides of the ball where guys are going to operate and be either in the scheme of how things run. So I think that is a lot of it on defense too, is like he knows, I know where this guy's going. I'm quick enough and fluid enough to stay with them or get to those spots, and nobody's going to eat me unless they're a super quick guard. So Collin Murray-Boyles, last thing to talk about, of course, is always the film. Keandre, aka Hooplanelec, had a scouting report on him about 2 months ago. Definitely go check that out. If you don't know, Collin Murray-Boyles is also dating other South Carolina basketball star Chloe Kitts. They got a lot of TikTok and a lot of content out there on social media. If you're into that stuff, it's cute, it's funny. Go check it out. Cash Iggy has so many different videos on Collin Murray-Boyles. So if you want to go check out the game, be warned, there's a lot again of backing guys down, a lot of post shots. So if you want to like sit there and analyze the jumper, good luck to you. There's not too many of those out there. And then the last one is Floor and Ceiling. Floor and Ceiling also did a great scouting breakdown, scouting report on Collin Murray-Boyles, which came out about a month ago. So go check all those things out on Collin Murray-Boyles. He's probably the one player I would say like definitely watches like so much, like even more so than what I've said with all the other people, just because a lot of the highlights you'll see are of offense. And I don't know about you, but I don't like particularly watching dribble down, dribble down, dribble down. Oh, I shoot this hook shot, or like, oh, I got this. I'm standing in the dunker spot. Oh, I put up this, little layup and it goes in. Like that's it's not exactly exciting to me, but on defense, it is exciting to see him command the defense, to see him be able to switch and get blocks and steals and stuff like that. So yeah, dive into more and more film than you would if you like doing this stuff on Collin Murray-Boyles, and definitely try and find more of the defense stuff and the playmaking, because I think that is really where the standout parts of Collin Murray-Boyles' game comes up. And like I said, I think that's going to be where he makes his money and really contribute to an NBA team to just help him win even more. Yeah, thank you so much for listening to us. We will return next time with another defensive weirdo. So yeah, thank you so much for listening to us. We'll catch you next time. I'm going to